No.
I'm gonna ask him for, meetings so far this year, Brian.
Sure, yeah, we can do a separate. All right. Good evening, and good evening, residents of Litchfield, and welcome to the February 19th, 2020 school board meeting. I'd like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we do have one revision to the agenda this evening. Mary Whidden is ill this evening, so her presentation will take place at another time. So a summary of non-public actions, January 22nd, 2020. Mr. Burke made a motion to approve the non-public minutes of January 22nd, 2020. Ms. McDonald second, motion carried 5-0. Mr. Myers made a motion to accept the resignation of Jocelyn Robinson, GMS Guidance, Dennis Perot, CHS Social Studies teacher, and Jill Glorious, speech pathologist. Mr. McDonald second, motion carried 5-0. So this evening we have Mrs. Heidi Ames from the GMS PTO, donation presentation.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming.
Name, address on the record, or yes. Heidi Ames, 21 Moose Hollow Road, Litchfield, and I'm also the GMS PTO president. So I am here to hopefully make a gift to Griffin for the purchase of a second phase of our playground project. We would like to purchase a Gaga pit for the playground. I would like to modify the letter to make the donation amount $4,999. You know, just because that dollar makes a difference in timing and whatnot, so we can keep it moving. So for those that don't know what a Gaga pit is, I don't know if anyone needs an explanation. It's essentially...
I was going to ask you, just for
yes,
those that are listening.
so people understand. A lot of these came up, I first learned about it through scout camps and whatnot, but it's essentially an octagon-shaped fence, I want to call it, that the kids get to play in, that plays a gentler version of dodgeball is one of the games. However, they can color coordinate it and have each board be a different color. They can put numbers and letters on it, so they can actually paint these things at some point, so that teachers can actually go out and use it, even if they wanted to on their own, for other games and fun. The big benefit to it, and the reason why we really want to push forward with it, is that it is something that could be usable during the winter months, that can be long without access to a lot of the playground structures that are out there. And so the thought process was, and when we did our fundraising, we had told the kids if we had hit a certain amount, we would do this. And so that amount was $15,000, and we ended up raising $28,000. So they blew it away, and we want to try and get it in as soon as possible.
So where exactly is this going to be located, if we're looking at the playground?
Sure. The original plans had it for behind and over near the swing set. I believe we're open to discussion about where it would be located. We certainly want to follow the recommendations of Mr. Ross and his plans. There was also discussion of it being somewhat near where the crawling tubes were. Does that sound familiar? On the playground sand. And so again, either of those locations are fine with us once they weigh in.
So one of them is to the left of where the swing sets are?
Mm-hmm. One of them is more in the grassy area, and then one of them is more on the actual gravel, the wood chips, I guess, of the actual playground that's structured in.
The only reason I asked is the same reason I asked as far as the additional swing set you put in last year, location, because you don't want to encroach on where they play soccer.
Correct.
So it's that fine
Correct.
line. So
Yep.
it's just find the markers for that.
Yep.
And do you plan, because you said you're going to utilize it during winter time, do you plan to purchase a cover for it?
So we don't need to have a cover for it. It can just be shoveled out. The kids can use it in the winter as part of that process. My understanding is...
I don't know if it'd be easier if you had a cover just to pull it off and get the
if
snow
we
off.
find out, we go through the first winter and we find out, hey, it's much easier for us if we had a cover, that's certainly something that we would be willing to fund. That's not something that we had planned on funding, but it's certainly something that anytime... Again, we have a pretty open relationship with Mr. Ross. If he comes to us and says this would be easier for us, and obviously it's a gift from us, we're certainly willing to do what we can to make maintenance of it simpler.
Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Good job on the race pace.
Yes, we're still working, just so I can put it on the record. We have about $15,000 more to spend. We're cash heavy right now, which is not a bad problem to have, but we have sent out surveys to teachers, staff, parents, student council has been really cute with their input. And so we are looking for your input as well if there are projects you think that we should be looking into, or suggestions, maybe things that people have suggested to school board that unfortunately couldn't make it into the budget the second time around, which there are always those items. We have accumulated a list, and we're going to be narrowing that down in the next month or so.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Just before Heidi gets away too, I want to thank her work the other night with the principal search
Yeah, you
process.
did a great job.
Facilitating the parent group. I mean, we invited 500 parents, really. It was the whole community, and we had a strong 20-ish that turned out.
It was a nice mixture
And
of
it
parents.
really was,
yeah.
and it proved to be a valuable part of it, so thank you for that.
Oh, I'm very happy to do it. We were very pleased to be part of the process, and I think parents were happy to have a voice in that. So thank you for including us.
So is there a motion to accept $4,999?
I'll make a motion to accept $4,999 for the purchase and installation of a Gaga pit.
We have a first and we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excited.
So that will bring us to correspondence.
No. We did have one email. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry.
That was 2
It
weeks
was a
ago.
while ago.
It was like 2
Yeah.
weeks ago. Yeah, about pay to play. That we had a parent write in that the board, he felt that the board was quick to dismiss pay to play, and maybe it would be worth looking into, you know, what kinds of fee schedules and what kind of an impact it might have on the district, whether or not it would
Offset some of the transportation
offset
costs.
some of the transportation costs, how, you know, whether parent, you know, the amount that parents would be willing to pay, would it affect kids being, you know, being able to afford opportunities, that kind of stuff. So he just suggested that we look for a little further into it before completely taking it off the table.
Okay. I don't think we're quick to make a decision, myself anyway. But, I mean, okay. All right, that'll bring us to the superintendent.
So just some quick follow-up items for the board. So the principal search process, many of you participated the other night, so you saw that process in action. You've met with a candidate tonight. I know we'll be talking in non-public later about that. So just an update for the community that we are closing in on a replacement, and as soon as we have something official, we'll announce that to the public, so that'll be coming out soon. But really, I think it proved to be a pretty good night. I mean, obviously, the parent group that was there, we had about 25 staff members who participated, and nearly all of the administrative team. We had a few people that were sick that night, but at any rate, it proved to be a good night for everybody, I think, so. Second thing is the school calendar draft. So if you click the link, this is the draft calendar that came forward to the board last time, at the last meeting. And communication with the association since is that they have now formed a committee to come forward to try to look into a sidebar. So I guess the ball is in the board's court in terms of finding the right time to get this passed so that we can get it out to parents. We're fielding calls in the office already as parents are trying to make plans, and mainly they're paying attention to the start of school. They want to know when students are going to return back at the start of next year. They're also curious about some of the vacation weeks so that they can book trips and plan their vacations. So that's why we're hearing and why there's, it's kind of pressing to get something figured out. But on the flip side, the association has expressed a willingness to talk about the start of school. So this contract, I believe, is 100% compliance with the collective bargaining agreements. And so this implements what the agreements say we need to do. But whether there's a willingness to adjust what those say and to come up with language that would accommodate a different start, we won't know until we can get together. And the earliest that we could get together is the week of May 9th. because we have
March
schools.
ninth?
March, sorry,
Okay.
the other M, week of March 9th.
Parents are gonna be showing up.
Yeah.
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 Is
Okay.
because, we have school vacation next week, and then I'm away a little bit of the week after. So we're looking at the week of March 9th to finalize a date and to sit down
When
and
did we finalize it last year?
finalize the calendar.
Yeah.
I think it came later. So there's been a history in Litchfield of the calendar being approved, in my eyes, late. It's, I think the 1 year prior said April is when it was approved. And
I know there has
I think
been
we did it
feedback about
earlier
that,
last
yeah.
year.
Hudson's is done.
But we now have Pinkertons and Alvern, so we can align with our receiving schools for VOC, which is a key thing. So they have theirs passed in December and to us in January. That's why we drafted this and had it available January 2nd, based on the calendars that we had. So here's where we are with it.
So that means the kids that are going to Alvern have to start school on the 27th, when Hudson starts school. If they do Alvern classes, they go to school earlier than everybody else?
And they did that this year. So the
Yeah.
Campbell students actually began at Alvern prior to us beginning at
Okay.
Campbell. So yes, so they know that they have to, we provide transportation, they have to get themselves
Oh,
to
good.
Campbell, and then a bus runs down there. But that is part of the issue, is that the other schools do start earlier.
Okay.
I'd imagine even the middle school probably has games.
I just want
Imagine they
to
have
make
games
sure the
that
high
week of
school
the
kids can
20
get to school.
24th through the 28th. I know the high school will. So all the high school kids and probably all the middle school kids that play sports will be back.
Labor Day
So-
is so late this year.
So traditional feedback that we get is, especially with a high percentage of students participating in athletics, that's sort of the start of school in their mind. And the fact that classes haven't started, athletic families are done with vacation because they know they've got to be back. And when practices start on, August 10th is probably
Probably
the
the
beginning.
Maybe the 17th, I don't know, but I doubt it.
And so families that are sports families know that they've got to take July and early August, because that's when that will start back up.
I guess my other question, Mike, will we be able to look at that? I mean, the New Hampshire primary, it just seems, the New Hampshire primary day, I mean, it's
Mhm.
gonna be such a small election. If there's any way we can,
When is that, the 8th?
So that's
Second.
Yeah.
September
Second.
8th.
It's September 8th.
oh,
Litchfield
eighth,
does
I'm
it.
sorry.
We have a
Yeah.
teacher workshop that day in Hudson.
So
Weird, because
talking
we've
with
already had all the workshops.
superintendents in the area that have voting taking place in the schools are closing. We're not abnormal doing this. I think it's a good point that the New Hampshire primary is not going to have, it's certainly not what we had at the presidential primary, and it will not be the general election in November.
It's not that large, you still have to have,
That's
you still have to have
huge.
teacher workshops, so if you're gonna do it, why not just have it coincide with the date where the school's being utilized for something else?
oh, it's just such a mess the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's a lot in the first 2 weeks.
What is election day?
So the wonky thing for me is the
November
31st and the 1st of September. Right? Because right now we have teachers coming back the week of the 24th and doing their workshop days, and then we have 2 days before students start on that Wednesday,
That's
the
correct.
2nd.
And so, again, that's driven by the contract language.
Okay.
So
I
the
know.
contract language says students can't come back they can only come back 5 calendar days before Labor Day. So you work off the 7th, and that's how you land on the 2nd for students. And then it says teachers can come back 7 calendar days before, what it says is the 3 workshop days cannot occur more than 7 days prior to students starting. So that's why you have 3 days that are occurring starting 7 days prior. So it's that language that's driving the way these come into play.
So if you were to shift that week of the 24th to the 28th to be later, to start, say, on the 26th, you would still have to move, because it has to be 7 days in between.
Nope. So
So if like teachers start on the 26th,
the earliest teachers can come back is 7 days prior, which is the 26th. And you can only have 3 workshop days so we couldn't have 5 workshop days, right?
Okay.
We can't take the 8th and move it back to the 1st, because then there would be 4 workshop days before students. So, That's why it's 3 workshop days, and then students start on the 2nd.
So you have to have 2 days in between when the workshops end before school starts?
No, you don't have to. It's just that,
It has to be 7 days before school starts.
Well,
yeah,
and
so
like
for
explain
example,
that.
we could have teachers return on the 28th, Friday the 28th, then have teacher workshop days on the 31st and the 1st, right? So then you'd have 3 workshop days before students, and then students would start on the 2nd. So that's a model, that would also work in this calendar and would work with this collective bargaining agreement.
Kind of stinks to have to come back on that Friday though. And wrap around the weekend. I don't know. I guess, I mean,
Can you say what the dates were you just said again on that scenario? They would start when?
Teachers could return to work on Friday, the 28th of August.
Yep.
Have 2 more workshop days on the 31st and the 1st,
Yep.
and then students start on the 2nd. That would be allowed under the terms of the collective bargaining agreement.
so would moving the student start date to the 31st be on the table with the,
So the question that was asked of the association on January 2nd was whether there was a willingness to talk about that.
oh, to even,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Because that would involve a sidebar agreement, because that's not what, that would violate the 5 days prior to Labor Day,
Okay.
right? Because that would be 7 days prior to Labor Day. And so there would have to be a sidebar agreement, and that's what we would plan to talk about down the road.
Okay.
It's been 6 weeks. I think we need to make a decision. Don't you think?
I mean, it's only 2 more weeks. I personally, I think I'd rather not change it and vote on what we're going with myself.
Yeah. Wait till we have the final
Till
product.
the 9th myself, or whatever day it was.
So what that means is we'll have a board meeting on March 4th. We would meet at some point the week of the 9th, hopefully, and you would get something back on the, what's that gonna be, the 18th? March 18th is when the board could vote on.
Oh, that's
Something.
awfully late.
It's very late.
So,
It's
but
late.
just to put the time frame out, it would be March 18th would be the, if you don't vote on this, and you wanna wait to see what happens, March 18th would be the next date that the board could have it.
It's no, it's late, but it'd be no different if we're voting to change it again anyways, the confusion.
It's a start date that would be changing.
Well, I mean.
Well, and we're assuming there's not other negotiations, right? So we've asked a question, but when you start to answer one question, others pop up. So just in
Exactly.
fairness, it may not just be one adjustment.
I think it's easier to, this is out there, right?
No, this is, well, it's with the board. So, Michelle, is this public? So it's not,
So why
you
couldn't
have
we
it,
make
but it's not.
Make it public as
Well, it's a
a,
draft anyway.
but as the draft, make it public as the draft, with the date, we expect this to be finalized by this date, and we could put on there, I mean, I would imagine that there's really no reason for February, April to change.
So
Never know.
February and April vacations are modeled off of
Yeah.
Pinkerton and Alvern. You know, I don't think, I haven't heard from the board a willingness to look
So I
at.
guess my question is, why are we so late as far as to begin negotiations for this change?
Pardon?
Why is it so late in negotiation, to start negotiation for this?
Well, our calendar has to come out after Pinkerton and Alvern, so
Right.
it's gonna be later than schools that don't do that anyway.
We received their calendars right before the Christmas break.
Okay. When do they start? They start the 27th?
Yes.
I'd have to pull theirs
We
up.
do.
No, what I'm asking is, why is it not until March 9th that we're gonna negotiate a change in the start?
So we got the calendars from them. We quickly developed our calendar.
Yeah.
We, again, on January 2nd, asked the question about, here it is, this is it. We could,
So I'm saying, so we started January 2nd, and then we're gonna be going 2 months before we start talking.
it has taken some time to hear back.
So what my concern would be is it would take another period of time as far as to negotiate and make the change.
I think we can have some offers and just say, here are the offers, or this is it. I mean, we gotta get a calendar.
We have a calendar.
No, but what I'm saying is if we're gonna negotiate, here are the options, here are their options, and say we
But
have.
that's my point. That should have taken place 2 months ago.
But it hasn't, so we gotta,
I know it
we gotta
has,
go there.
and what I'm concerned about is it'll continue dragging.
I think we just have to make it that it's, I mean, it's gotta be done by the 18th, that's the day. So this,
March?
either it's by March 18th, it's either this one or it's something we change before that date, but it's gotta be, I mean, if we say that's the date we're voting on it, that's the date we're voting on it. I mean, yeah, we'd
Liz,
like to
is
have
your
it sooner.
schedule set? Is your schedule for set?
For next year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is yours?
Mhm.
Three
When do you
teachers,
start,
3
Rob?
schools already set.
Late,
Late, you start the second?
second, yeah. Which again, in my opinion, it puts a lot of the teams, I mean, I'm assuming the same as you, Mike, that unless, I don't think the state's pushing start dates back to the 17th, but the kids are gonna be back probably for the 10th anyways. So, middle school will probably start, what, the
sports?
24th?
So what are you thinking of doing, Rob? You're concerned about sports, but what are you thinking about doing as far as the calendar?
It's up to Mike and the union.
No,
I
but
mean,
what are you thinking? Because you keep talking about the
I
meeting of sports.
personally, I think if we can figure out a way to get back with the kids on the 31st, and I'd go back to what I mentioned last time, throw out there, give the 4th off, go to school Monday through Thursday, give the 4th off, that way now you have a 5-day weekend with the, I just think, if
I
we-
would much prefer that too, and I
That's-
think parents who have kids in summer camps would much prefer that. But
But I think it's
think
gotta
we're
be,
late.
yeah, it's gotta be something around that, or this is the calendar, and I think on the 18th, we have to vote. It can't drag out.
So you're talking about going to the LEA and just having the
Well,
start
no,
date of the
see what they say, but
on the
make sure they-
31st, and change nothing else as far as in the calendar.
Well, no, start on the 31st, and
Friday
give
the
them
4th
Friday
off,
the
too.
4th off.
Right.
Like a 1,
Give
2,
and
3,
take.
4 days.
They're giving us, what'd you call it, Mike, a 1-year exemption, or 1-year
It's just a
Sidebar.
sidebar.
sidebar? And I'd ask for that, see, it's gotta be a negotiation, see what they say, but I think it has to be clear that we're voting on this on the 18th. I mean.
When's our next meeting?
Your next meeting is the 4th?
I would say we vote on the 4th, so I'd say let's get to the LEA. Let's get together beforehand.
So I'm not able to do that.
Yeah, he said he can't.
Yeah,
And
so
all I can tell you, if we're talking experience, we had a case this year where they made some type of mistake on early release days. They've been sending out emails and calendars in my district, not here, and we still have parents all confused. And it happened after the calendar was approved, like 3 weeks later, they changed it. And because the calendar went out, people printed it and never bothered to print it out. I would rather put it off 2 weeks. You can tell them it was my fault, I'll take the lumps on it. It's just, I think all the problems you're having if you
more
vote
than 2
and
weeks.
change. Well, you're pushing it off for 3 weeks? But the lumps you're gonna take from, because people will print it as soon as they see it for vacations and holidays and everything
We'll
else.
have to, we'll have
Yeah.
to.
And they're
Shouldn't
not
go
gonna go
out
back
till
and
it's
print it again.
approved. Yeah.
We did weather the change in the New Hampshire primary. Remember the calendar said January 28th, we moved it to the 11th. People did okay, but that was a 1-day.
But there was still a lot of discussion around, do we have
Yeah.
school, don't we have school? It confuses people.
It's the same thing with President's Day. People didn't know we didn't have school or had school.
right.
I mean, if we can post this, letting people know this is
Yeah.
a draft calendar, things are going to change when we vote, but at least people can see. 'Cause I find it hard to believe we're gonna buck the whole state on February and April vacation. You know what I mean? And that's probably the main thing people care about.
No, and it sounds like the only thing that we're discussing right now is the start date.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Correct?
yeah.
Either we
True.
start on the 2nd or we start on the 31st. And if we start on the 31st, then it's a 5-day weekend.
Yeah.
Well, but
So they come back, they go to school 2 days, and then they're off.
that's what we're offering. We
4
haven't
days.
heard what the
Or,
union-
or not. You know,
Yeah, we
one
don't
thing
know.
to keep in mind is, I mean, why does the start date matter? Because the end date matters.
Mm-hmm.
And the end date in a snowy winter really matters. So,
Well, that's
right
just it.
now, starting on the 2nd, has us ending on June 18th, right, or 16th.
Right, but starting on the 31st and giving those 5 days off, you're still ending the same time.
Oh, it actually has us ending on the 18th. With no snow days, we're still going to June 18th. So, if you could recover 2 days up front, you can get out earlier, hopefully. But then again, if you give the the long weekend, the 5-day weekend,
You're right back where you
you're
were.
just bumping one back down. So
Right.
no matter how you slice it, there's 180 days of
Right,
instruction.
so the
we
question
need
is,
to
are we
weave in.
trying to start earlier and get out earlier? Or are we looking to just start earlier and see,
I'm just looking, at this point, I'm just looking to start the kids on that Monday. And then I feel like
31st?
February not February, August 31st.
There's no February
March,
31st.
May,
No,
You can't
February.
do that.
That's when we should start. August 31st.
I think the
So I think if we can get an agreement with the LEA for that piece of it, as soon as we can, I don't know if there's a possibility that can happen before our March 4th.
like I said, I can't. So,
Well, there's tomorrow. But just for the start date, and then everything else, there's no tomorrow.
okay, so
There's no tomorrow.
you're in favor of like starting on the 31st, going
Yes.
the 31st, the 1st, and then having 5 days off before you go back to school again?
Oh.
Yeah,
31st, 1st, 2nd, 3rd.
Yeah.
Not
4 days
the-
of
4
school,
days.
5 days off, 4 days of school, or no, 3 days of school.
Then five.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
See, I would recommend, again, if we could get this, it would be 5 days of school.
That's what I was gonna say, why don't
And
we just go
then
the whole
a
week?
4-day weekend, and then we're
Yeah.
back. You don't even get a break until
I didn't
Columbus
realize,
Day
I
at that point.
suggested the 4th, having that Friday off before Labor Day, before I realized that we also have the Tuesday
Yeah.
of that weekend, so.
Or honestly, if the board's sense is that, the New Hampshire primary is not gonna have a massive turnout, and we feel that we can secure the building, which I believe we can, so that we can coincide with voting. Imagine if we had, then we take the 4th off,
Right.
because traditionally we've had the Friday of Labor Day. So then you do 4 days, and
Yeah.
then you're rolling. So that's another, all these are little tweaks and little models that we can try to come up with.
Okay, so, again, so the only thing we're trying to fix is from the 31st, we'll say, to the 8th, that portion.
That's our
You know,
question.
with changes, you can end up picking up for like 4 days at the end of the year,
You could.
which would be your snow days.
Right, but we can do, I mean, if we can nail down a start date, I think that will please the community and the parents.
Well, I think we need to nail everything down. It's not just the start date, it's those weeks
Well,
right there.
that's what I mean, but if we're talking, if blizzard bags and days off and PD, if going to hours and all that is part of.
Just, no,
Well, that's what I'm saying,
No, this was,
That's
it was
just
just, it's a
this.
simple question.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's a simple question, and really it's a yes or no answer,
okay,
right? It's either
Yes
yes,
or no.
we can agree to do that, or no, we implement the terms of the CBA. It's really,
okay.
So we in favor of waiting until the 9th?
I would. But,
Yeah.
the week of the 9th, so you'll get the calendar on the 18th. Is that,
well, can we do an electronic vote, Michelle, for something like that? So we can
What
get it out?
is the 9th?
You can.
What's
I
the
mean,
ninth?
you can do that. We'll just
Well, we
close
don't-
at the next one, but
the request is for a meeting the week of the 9th, so it's
Right,
not
so
on the
it would
9th,
not happen.
and we haven't
So
even
we have one
confirmed
on
that
the
yet.
4th,
So,
and then one on the 18th,
But what day is the 9th?
a Monday.
so it's that week. I mean,
So-
if we had something that week, I guess we could
Just do an
do
electronic.
an electronic vote and confirm it on
could
the
do that.
18th.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if
That's
you all
perfect.
agree with it, we can publish it and get it out.
Yeah,
So if you want it out
A week's better
sooner
than-
than the 18th, we could do
Yeah.
that. But again, that's all pending.
So if not, the latest that we'll approve it is the 18th.
correct.
Okay.
Which is a Wednesday.
So if the LEA comes back, so we say it's a simple question, right?
It
But
is.
it's still a negotiation.
Yep.
So if the LEA comes back with wanting the Friday off or on, or that Tuesday off or on, are we going to entertain that or not? I just want that out there.
Well, so now we're getting into too many what ifs, I think. It's sort of like, to me, it's starting as quickly as possible and ending as soon as possible. So how do we condense the calendar and make that, still get the 180 instructional days in? So I would have, and I have always said, and I have maintained for years, that a 90-degree day on August 31st is not equal to a 90-degree day on June 18th.
Right. Yeah.
The enthusiasm and energy in the buildings are polar opposites. So I'd rather come back to school and have the 90-degree day of fresh air, but that's my take.
So we'll wait till the 18th.
All right, so next, community outreach, so March voting. So if you click the link there, that is a draft voter guide. Michelle's put a lot of work into this. So we had a meeting with Troy to talk about teaming up with the town. So part of our problem or dilemma is with the HLN no longer printing, getting word out in the community is a challenge. And so the town and the school district are collaborating to come up with a mailing. So basically, we would deliver this to every single household in the zip code of Litchfield. So the beauty is the town has one zip code, and it's the town borders. So you can send it to every household in the zip code, which is 3,300 roughly.
3291, yeah.
There you go, 3291. And so then the voter guide would go. So when you look at this, you can see that it's the town portion that is first, and then the school portion follows after that. And we're, trying to make that clear with our school seal versus the town seal
Yeah,
and so
I'm
forth.
gonna insert a page, much like the cover page, to separate it. I just wanted to get the logo in there, at least.
And given the size of this, it looks like it would be about 4 pages.
I think it's gonna be 411 by 17, so
Are we splitting the cost of postage?
So
4 double-sided or single-sided?
double-sided.
It's very long.
Because it's
Well,
gonna
the-
be 8 pages, the
the-
finished product,
the-
so, yeah.
I mean, our warrant's not that long, the town warrant, I mean, there's,
Well, don't forget, they're gonna have
17
explanations
articles.
in there, they're gonna be brief, but I
It's like our own little
might have a
newspaper.
way, I might have a way to make,
I'll put a sports page in
make
there
that
too.
little, we could do that.
we could do a sports page.
Pictures?
The cost of distributing it is actually relatively inexpensive. So our share would be about $300 roughly. So you would hit every household for that.
That's printing and mailing?
Nope, that's the mailing aspect of it. The printing, we still are, it all depends on the size of it.
Right.
Yep. Do you have any estimates as far as printing?
I don't, I had one for just one sheet, 11 by 17. That was gonna be double-sided and a mailer, but, that was like $600.
Blank page at the
And that
end.
was, 3,000 or 3,300 copies of, but it may not be much more than that, because I usually shop around. I don't stick with one person. Who gives me the best price? So I go to.
Well, the mailing part is pretty inexpensive compared to what I thought.
I'm sorry?
It's not that much, $300.
No,
For our half?
no,
No.
split it with the town.
And don't forget, the prison has cheap labor.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, but they take so long.
They take a while. We printed some stuff at the state prison and saved a boatload of money, I'm just telling you.
We did. It saves a lot of money, and they did a great job.
I didn't even
but
know they
it
did
took
that.
forever.
We used to just buy piggy banks there from Norfolk, Cedar Junction.
And when did you plan to mail these?
So we talked with Troy, he's supposed to have his portion into Michelle by Friday. She'll format and get it to the printers next week, deliver them to the post office in Hudson, which is where the mail comes from, on Monday the 2nd. And then they would hit households
The next
later
day.
that week,
Yeah.
yeah.
Probably the
That-
next
So
day.
you'd have about a week before the election for it to hit.
That's perfect.
And we're on track for that, we're really just
Yeah,
waiting
we
for
really
Troy,
are.
so it's
Yeah.
just, yeah.
Oh, I did have one question. On our operating budget article, do you want me to put the tax impact for the default budget in there?
Yeah, I thought it was in there.
It is.
I think we didn't put it in.
No, it's there.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You wanna
Let me
leave it
back
in?
up on the ballot. I'm sorry, on the ballot. Do you want it on the ballot?
Doesn't it have to be?
No, it doesn't. It's just the operating budget. It has to be, but I just thought maybe it would help
Is the
voters
town
to see
doing it?
both.
Is the town doing it? I think we should do exactly what the town does.
I don't know what, I have to look at their ballot.
I'm
I
just
don't
curious.
have access to their ballot.
I would check with Terry. And I would say just follow what the town's doing.
Okay.
What have we done in the past? We've listed it, haven't we?
I think we
he listed it one year, then didn't list it another year.
I would say check with Terry or
Okay.
Troy and just follow suit what the town's doing, just to be uniform.
So they're only 30,000 different, which might not have a tax impact. It might be the same,
We still have a tax impact.
the 30.
Mhm.
By the time you round, though, I wonder if it.
We have a
Catches.
$30,000 article that has a tax impact of, what,
Oh, yeah, that's
a few
right.
cents.
That's right.
So it's gonna be even higher for them.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I'll check with Terry.
Anything else on voter guide?
No, that's good.
Outreach, okay. Individual championship signs, so I was asked about the, these are really the track signs in the Campbell gym.
Oh, yeah, that they're not updated.
Oh.
And so, that's been identified for Josh,
Okay.
and apparently it's been a couple of years since that was updated, but his goal is to get it done this spring, so.
Oh, so the kids, like the Hoffman kid, can actually see his name up there. That's awesome.
Yep.
Is it Josh? Josh. Yeah.
Josh Knight, the AD, will,
Yeah,
he's
awesome.
on it, he'll have that taken care of come springtime. Grade 5 and 6 content lit, I was asked about that. So basically, Martha and Tom have devised a schedule that they're working with Mary on, but the concept is to fold content lit from a standalone course into the existing schedule. So you would be expanding the time for math, science, et cetera, and then the teachers would be expected to embed the content literacy into the class time that they have. So you would have more contact hours with your teacher each day, and then the content lit would become infused and embedded into the curriculum instead of a standalone class that the
Can I
students
just,
go to.
so a word problem is considered reading in math now? That's what it says to me. Am I wrong? Do you know what I mean? So the word problems is reading, so that's gonna be considered part of the contents literacy? That's how they're gonna,
No.
No?
I mean, the way it is now, it's a separate curriculum sheet. They do novel studies and they,
but in 7th grade, Nolan does both, reading and writing, doesn't she?
Well, this is grades 5 and 6 only, so
Okay.
it's 7th and 8th they're not touching because,
When do we have,
How did it
Tom
work
back
out
here?
this year?
so Tom will be back, the second meeting
The
in March.
6th grade? Did the
So
6th
we
grade
can, we can
it?
have him give you a brief on what
Yeah,
his
how
plan
it
is.
worked out this year?
Yeah, so let's do that. I just wanted to give you
Yeah.
the quick sense of, this is what they're working on, but they haven't settled on it yet, so
Right.
they're
Again, it's one of those
still
things that
working their way
why have
through
a
it.
discussion, we can have the
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
who's-
Right, yeah, I agree.
All right, so updating transcripts, basically at the end, this is a high school question.
Rounding of grades.
you have a
Rounding of
rounding of
grades.
grades.
That was
Oh,
me.
sorry, I skipped rounding of grades. Okay, so that was a fascinating question.
Yes, it is.
So the middle school rounds grades,
Mm-hmm.
the high school does not. And
Do they?
the high school does not.
No, they
No.
do not.
That's the middle school?
The middle school does. The middle school, basically, if you look at the,
89.6 or 4 or 6 is
yeah,
a
so
A minus.
89.6 at the middle school would round up to a minus,
Mm-hmm.
and 89.6 at the high school is a B
B
plus.
plus.
And so I asked the question of why,
Mm-hmm.
and basically, it's the way it's always been done, is the answer. So I said to Mary, can we look into this while we're looking at making the conversion to Power School? And we-
Mm. Why is
we
it
have a-
always a year too late for my kids?
we have a grading committee, and I said, you know, it's another example of like a crazy maker for parents. It rounds this way here, but that way there.
Either round or don't round. That's
Well,
a
that-
simple question.
And that's what Mary's trying to do with the everything vertically aligned
Yeah.
and everything consistent.
I know when the number is the only thing that counts, adding it in, but yeah, okay.
You know,
Just had a
and-
lot of 89s in my report cards this past.
but just to caution the board, you know, when you go to a more competency-based, you know, what's the role of rounding in a competency-based environment? So as we get better at competency, then the rounding question may not even have the same validity, but as long as we're rounding, let's consistently round.
Right.
So we'll get back to you on that,
Yeah.
but I was surprised to hear that answer, and I was actually surprised when you reached out because I had
that's
not
what I
heard
do.
of not rounding. Updating transcripts, so the high school transcripts are updated at the end of the term, or at the end of the semester. So, once the grades were closed out at the end of the first semester, then transcripts were updated. The other time they're updated is if a student completes a like an online course, a VLAX class, or an Odyssey course, they'll add it to the transcript and update it as soon as we get the other transcript saying, here's the credit, so.
But it wasn't. When grades closed, the transcripts weren't available at Campbell.
They may not have been instantly available,
Oh,
but my
okay.
understanding is that they were updated right after that.
All right,
So
awesome.
you
I
should be
didn't
able
know
to see
if,
it now.
I didn't know if it was yearly or what.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope, it should be at the end of the semester. I was asked a question about the LMS late bus and detention. So the situation that they're in is that the detention time at LMS is about 45 minutes. So it's roughly equal to a class period. But then, so that would be till about 2:45. But then the late bus doesn't come until 3:30. So you have this kind of nowhere to go time period, which is never good with middle school students. So that's why they ask the parents to come get the child, so that there's nowhere for them to be in between. So that's why they run it that way. And then the last question I was asked was about the Costa Rica trip. And so it's clear at this point, this is not a school trip. It's not being organized under the school board policy for international travel. And so therefore, I've communicated to the teachers that are involved that they're running their own independent enterprise. They can't advertise in the schools. They cannot communicate with students or parents about the trip because it's really a marketing adventure. We don't have Avon in the schools selling, so that's exactly the way it's been made clear. And the posting that was out on Facebook, I want to say last week, maybe, which again started with, I'm a teacher at the middle school and I'm communicating to parents of high school students. And I said, you got to stop that. Done. It's not a trip. If you're identifying yourself, then say, but this is not a school trip, even though that's how you might know me. But this is not being organized under the school board policy. So if you see anything out there about that, let me know, and I will certainly get it corrected.
That brings us to school board. And I see the wellness committee's on there.
Is this comments? All right, I'll wait till after the wellness
Go ahead.
update.
We had our first meeting today, this afternoon. I realized that I'm not going to schedule a wellness meeting again at the same day as the school board meeting because didn't get much other work done today. But we had a great turnout. We had 14 people there. Great representation from teachers and parents. Had a few parents, had one student there, looking for more students and also community members. But we talked about, we started to collect what we're doing now for wellness. And because that's important for reporting purposes, for the school lunch program. And we also did some work on a vision. I had postcards on the table for people to give ideas, but we're really not at that level yet. Though, again, just kind of collecting that information. We want to come together and develop a vision statement that everybody can agree with, and then we'll start getting into putting together an action plan. We did schedule our next 2 meetings, and I just want to get them
So Tara, you
out
mentioned
there.
that new dodgeball.
Gaga.
Yep.
You mentioned as far as having like more students there.
Yes.
I don't know where you held the meeting.
CHS Library Commons. It was actually a fabulous
And did
place
you
to
have
have
the
it.
student reps there?
We did not.
Did you invite them? That might be an idea.
I
I was
know,
thinking-
definitely. I reached out to, we put it on Facebook, invited the students through there. Hopefully the parents saw that. I did have interest from another student who said she was going to come but didn't show up. I reached out to the sophomore and senior project advisors for Campbell and was able to get 3 referrals there. I didn't hear from 2 of them and I got 1. But
Just wanted, maybe
Yeah.
like sending an invitation to student reps might be helpful. And I know that,
Definitely.
logistics probably wouldn't allow it, but I mean, it'd be nice if you can get like a student council from GMS there. And same thing from LMS.
Yep.
I don't think there's a way really to transport them,
Right.
unfortunately. But
Well,
maybe you could have like meetings in different locations.
we did a meeting, we did an invite to all the staff, so why don't we just do an invite to all students? Would that be appropriate?
Well, again, you can't transport them. I take it you have this during school time or right after school?
After school, 3:15, yeah, so obviously,
Is the
parents
mission
would
for
have to take
student
them.
wellness, or is
It
it
is-
staff wellness?
So
or
that
is-
was a distinction, actually.
Yeah.
In the past, it was mostly staff wellness. However, the policy clearly was created with nutrition as the top
Yeah, that
focus.
seemed what the
So
whole
there
thing
was
was
a little
about to me, yeah.
disconnect there
Yeah.
that we talked about. But the purpose, from what I've read, there's a group called, I think it's the New Hampshire, Alliance for a Healthier Generation. They are an organization that has a lot of resources for wellness committees. We talked about, I forgot where it was at, but, inviting, or sorry, where was I? I was trying to think. What was the question?
Students
As far as
versus
having
staff
students more
wellness.
involved.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think we can just, send an email out to everybody, and then I did, what we did for staff is sent the email out to everybody, and then I just kind of sent emails out to, some people I knew, the phys ed teachers, nurses, just people that I kind of knew myself. And then you referred somebody to me too, so we could do the same thing with students. So I think the
necessarily know
student
by-
council's a great idea. I think the student reps. Yeah.
I don't know if I necessarily would send it to all students. I would start with like the student councils. Because they do represent all the students, so
Right.
rather than flooding
Right.
like 400 kids.
I
with-
did ask my son, but the dodgeball tournament was much more important.
Right.
We have a busy group of kids in town. We're
Right.
busy.
Right. No, but I'm definitely going to do some more outreach to get students because that's critical. It really does affect them, and it is going to be a two-pronged focus on both students and staff. So it was exciting.
Good.
Oh yes, our next meeting. Of course, it's not written on this piece of paper. Shouldn't take very long. Sorry. The meeting was at 3:15, so I came home. Okay, the next meeting is on March 25th. And then the meeting after that is going to be May 13th. And we hope to get on a pattern come next year, but this year, if we went with like the second or third Wednesday of every other month, it put us to the last week of June, so it just didn't make sense. So May 13th and March 25th. So, and anybody's welcome. So,
Thank you. Liz, you had something?
No, I'll wait.
I have something. Last week on the teacher workshop day on the 11th, I actually had the day off, so I was able to go and, as self-professed curriculum geek and PERC committee member, I was able to walk around and sit in on some of the K-12 teams as they were working on curriculum and competencies, and it was really, I totally geeked out, frankly. I sat in for a little while with the ELA team, which was all the English and reading teachers from K-12, all in a room, working on the competencies, the standards, the indicators for their K-12 curriculum documents. And then, let's see, I sat in a little while with some of the UAs and FACS and math in different subjects, different rooms. But they were talking a lot about, there was a lot of talk and discussion about competency-based grading and reporting. and that's kind of, I was hoping to hear, I'm sorry that Mary's sick tonight, I understand, but I was kind of hoping to hear her update from Grading and Reporting Task Force, just because a lot of the teachers, they were presented with a list of questions to dive into and just have discussions about, things like, how would you grade this? So the one I kept seeing as I was bopping around from room to room was the student turned something in 2 days late. So what do? Do you grade it? Do you give full marks and then ignore the tardiness? Do you dock points for them turning it in late? And more about the theory and the procedures in a true competency-based model, and how we have kind of a hybrid right now.
It's
So
inconsistent.
It's inconsistent.
Across all
So-
subjects, and I have a
right.
very late turner in our kid.
So that's kind of what, it was exciting to see everybody discussing it and trying to, hash out, well, I do this, well, I do
Yeah.
this. It was really interesting to hear the reasons why and the philosophies behind it. And ideally, I think the Grading and Reporting Task Force has been meeting for a long time, and I felt like the consensus was we need to get on it and be consistent, so that parents, the whole point of grading and reporting is so that we have an idea of how kids are doing and a clear picture to communicate to parents, and I think that's important. So it was really, really good to see the work that was happening, and how much of their time and energy they were devoting to really improving how we do things in our schools. So it was great. I really enjoyed it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So the only thing I'd like to say is, I guess I'll sound just like Dr. Jetty here. I'd just like to thank the community who did come out the other night as far as for the principal cert for GMS. Not only the public, but also the teachers, the paras,
A
the
lot of
support
people there.
staff, and of course the admin team. I thought it was great that there were that many people in different pockets that were able to have the potential candidates circulate through the different groups and get a lot of feedback after it was all done. Some great feedback, so I thought it was a really great process we went through. Does anyone have anything else? All right, I'll bring us to community forum. Does anybody from the community have anything?
Hodgkins, 14 Grouse. To my email that I sent back to you
Like 2 weeks ago or
Yeah.
tonight?
about
Yes,
why I couldn't be there.
absolutely did. I should.
So I knew nothing about your meeting talking about stuff that the busing. So that's why I wasn't there that night. Plus I had to work.
I think I mentioned that it was short notice. I know a short notice was given to you, but we did extend the opportunity for you.
Certainly, and that's why I'm here tonight. I did actually watch the meeting on YouTube the next day, and one thing I saw in the meeting I didn't like was by you, Christina. You called me unreasonable. Why am I unreasonable?
I watched them after Liz actually sent me a screenshot of your comment on your.
Because I didn't know if I said something, I don't know who
Right.
said, because I didn't know.
So
I don't remember saying anything.
that was my
Yes, I
attempt at a joke towards this Brian. It wasn't directed toward you at all.
But you guys were referring to me the whole time when it came to pay to play.
Well, Rob was saying thanks for coming to our meeting. I went back and watched it because after I saw your post, I was concerned that I had said something.
So wasn't I, that's why I sent it to her.
Right.
To see if she had said
Right.
something.
So, because that was never my intention. I try to be extremely respectful and you know.
I watched the video. I mean, I'll take what you're saying. I'm saying, but
Okay.
watching the video, I heard what Rob said, and then it said some people are unreasonable, and that was your under your breath
He
comment,
said,
Brian.
can I,
Absolutely.
okay, so what he said was he was saying goodbye to the folks that were here for the pay-to-play presentation, or discussion. And he was saying, thanks for coming to our meeting, you know, the best thing you can do is keep coming to meetings and staying informed. And correct me if I'm wrong, Rob.
Remember it?
I know, I don't remember it either.
And to keep coming to meetings and you know, come to the school board meetings, come to the budget committee meetings, and I believe what you said was, we're all reasonable people. And I elbowed Brian and looked at him and said, except for Brian. It's kind of a long-standing joke that that Brian is seen as
Takes
the
the heat for a lot
unreasonable,
of stuff.
right, he takes the heat for a
Difficult,
lot of stuff.
cranky.
He's cranky. So it wasn't, I honestly, truly didn't direct it to you, it was, sadly, it was directed to Brian. So I apologize if that was unclear.
Sorry if I misunderstood.
No, it's
Now, when it comes to my proposal, actually every one of you on this committee basically said that it's unreasonable, people and parents can't afford it. Now, looking at the warrant articles,
I don't think, did we say parents can't afford it?
I'm sorry, you were against it. And one of the reasons being against it is because some parents couldn't afford it. It was definitely said that there are folks in
would
this
be the
community
case, yeah.
that can't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I look over the warrant articles, that when it was unanimous by this board, totaled up, and I'm using in a house at a $300,000 appraisal, about $201 would be added to the tax base.
For which warrant articles?
All of them, all the ones that this committee,
Town and school, or?
no, just the schools.
Schools, okay.
Yeah, where it says recommended by a school board,
Yeah.
vote 5-0. And it's just, I'm just doing it at a 300,000 evaluation versus a lot of these houses are 400,000 or 500,000, so obviously this number would go up. However, at a $300,000 valuation, right around $200 or $201 is what you guys would say, yeah, the taxpayers can definitely afford to pay that on top of the tax burden that they're already paying.
I don't think it's necessarily we say, yeah, the taxpayers can afford it.
But you're voting for it.
I think what we say is that's what we need in order to operate the school district.
Right. In your,
It's unfortunate that costs continue going up, salaries continue going up. We just have a brand-new teacher's contract that is in effect right now. That in itself adds approximately $300,000 to the contract, to the budget right off the bat.
right, which comes out of the taxpayer's pocket,
Yeah.
which the school board recommended.
But
And they
it's
approved
not
it,
that we
the
sit here-
taxpayers approved it.
It's not that we sit here, Brian.
Not all of them.
Yeah, that's true, that's why it's
But
put
Brian,
out to the public.
Just to speak for myself, I'd have to say, I vote for things sometimes, not necessarily because I'm gonna vote for them in the voting booth myself.
Exactly.
But because I think it's what the town should be voting for.
Right, but the board itself, this board as a whole
Mm-hmm.
did vote, according to this sheet, 5-0 and on all those articles,
Mm-hmm.
that would
That's-
add
But
to
that's
the-
what I'm saying, Brian. I'm voting yes for a lot of these.
To give the
And I'm not
voters a
saying I
chance to
don't-
vote
I'm
on
not saying
it.
I don't support what
Yeah.
we're talking about, but I think I'm voting yes so the voters can decide if they wanna pass it or not. I'm not voting yes saying I want every one of these. I have the discussion in our
Absolutely.
open meetings, why I agree or don't agree, why I think we should or shouldn't. But when push comes to shove, I think part of my job, being elected to this committee and being an appointed member of the budget committee, is when I think it's a reasonable thing to put in front of the budget committee,
The
put in front of the
public's-
voters.
Yeah,
I think it's my job, unless I totally disagree with something, to give the voters the final say in that and show them that I think this is something fair that you should vote on. In my opinion, I'm not voting to say I 100% agree with this, and maybe I'm wrong doing this, but I vote on it saying I think we got to the point where I'm comfortable letting the voters see this, and it's what I think is the best deal. for
that's
the district.
exactly how I do
But-
it.
No,
So
I would have to debate
relative
that.
to your,
Just let.
Let's go back to Robert's point is, if you can have a warrant article, you don't have to recommend the warrant article. The warrant article is gonna be there. You're putting it on there. Now, what you're saying by this is saying, by a vote of 5-0, that you are recommending it. You're not just saying, I'm putting it on it, because it's already there. So
And
you're-
I'm
the
I'm
school board
recommending it
is
for the
recommending.
town to vote on. And if you look back, Brian, all the things we put on there, and same with the budget committee, the things we put on there are things, in most cases, we've cut, we've questioned, the district's explained why they really need it. And that's why I'm voting yes, because I think there's a need, I think that it's a fair
Right, so,
warrant.
but you are recommending it, because, I
Yeah.
mean, that's what this is saying, it's recommended by the school board.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you personally believe it or not, in this forum, the school board voted for it.
Yeah.
So, by the same token, the school board is saying they are recommending all these, which would cost $201 just at a $300,000 evaluation, which would be higher based on most of the houses. You can't buy a house in this town for $300,000, I could
Right
see.
now,
But, so, how is that different than if you're saying, because you're voting, you're recommending this to be voted by the public. So you're saying, I believe the voting public can afford this at $200 or more. That you're voting for it, so you're recommending it, which would, you're telling the public, hey, I want you to have this. So if
But-
they do pass it, then that comes out. So
It's
on the
actually a
same
different
token,
issue.
it's not.
I think what we were saying last time is that some people cannot afford to pay for the co-curriculars, because that was the issue that we were discussing at the time. I think it's 7 or 8% of our kids in town are on free and reduced lunch, and that is a well-known measure of poverty. That's not everybody, right? But it's 8%. And co-curriculars, we had two legal advisories on this done previously, saying that, and there's law that co-curriculars have been determined to be part of a basic education, a minimum education that we have to provide to people. So there's also in that advisory, there's information about the fact that you can't use free and reduced lunch as a way to qualify people for waivers for this. So there's a lot of evidence out there that if we strip this away and make kids pay for it, we're gonna lose a lot of those kids who cannot afford it. I was actually initially very much in favor of paying some type of a cost, but there was great information that was provided at the last meeting, background information about those advisories and the law and what we had to provide as part of a basic education. So to me, I don't think we were saying at all last time that the whole population can afford it. We know that's not the case, but there's close to 10% of people in our town that, it's gonna be an issue if we make them pay.
Okay. Well, I would disagree with that. I'm not disagreeing that there's not 10% of the people that couldn't pay for it. However, there are other ways around that. There's ways for people to pay things. Get a job, work for it. If you want something in life, it's not free. Just because the town pays for a lot of this stuff and a lot of the voters do, what message are you sending to somebody saying that just because you want something, you can have it? It's not free. It's not free when I have to pay for it. And it's not free when the
Legislature has defined
The legislature is not-
co-curriculars
no,
as part of
Nashua
the basic
does it.
education.
But Brian, one thing I would say, I think everybody here hates their taxes to go up every year. But part of the reason you said the houses in Litchfield, you can't get one for less than 350,000 is the number of people that move to town because of our schools.
Right.
If our schools were, and I always say this, if we were in Franklin now instead of Litchfield, our house values wouldn't be that high because the schools are a little rougher. And you hate to say it, I'd love to tell you we could vote next year and taxes aren't gonna go down. I mean, there's
Well, no, not
contracts
when
and
you add
every
$1 million
year.
to the budget every year, they certainly aren't.
Brian, you have to look, the townspeople voted for kindergarten, that's the bulk of our $1 million increase, that's 600,000-ish kindergarten, full-time kindergarten, when they keep talking about the $1 million increase, wasn't that close to 600,000 between the?
Well, remember,
The teachers
we're
and-
in year two, so
Yeah, right.
it wasn't the full amount
But,
of next year.
it adds to that.
That's a part of it.
New sports that were voted in, the contract that was voted in, so when we talk about people can't afford it, people are voting it in. It's the same as the fire station, everyone complains about, somebody voted it in.
And again, I have no control of that.
And neither do
But-
we, other than at the ballot box. But for us to say we're not gonna do what's right for the schools is not what we were elected for. We're not rubber stamping things. I mean, if you watch our meetings.
We went through, there could have been 20 warrant articles, and we put the kibosh on at least 5 or 6 that we thought were over the top, or we didn't agree with.
Well, I mean, suffice it to say, we're never gonna agree, because we're
Right.
No.
way far off.
That's
I didn't,
fair.
I don't expect you guys to agree with me pretty much with anything.
Well, Brian,
But
I'm not saying I disagree
my
with you
main-
about the taxes, but it's, I mean, you hate to say, what does it go back to Ben Franklin, being a social studies teacher? What did he say? 2 things in life were certain, death and taxes. I mean, and I'm not saying that lightly, it's just, when you have contracts, when you have, it's a union, so it's a contract, there's,
Well, and the cost of services goes up. Our bus contract has increased. The cost of services that we give that we have to, as you said, as you saw in the budget
And-
process.
and something I know we talked about it, a student moved to town, that can increase special services.
But that's, I'm not
$1,000.
speaking in regards to
No, but I'm just
services.
saying, when you talk about things going up,
Certainly, and
It can
there's
cost us
nothing I can do.
more.
I don't think it's right personally, but there's nothing I can do about it. However, you can't say that it's nothing that this board couldn't do this, and it's illegal because it's being done in other schools. They are doing it, they are making it work. And in a school, if you're in, like you're saying, where you can't even buy a house for 300 or 350, it's more around what the 455 range. If you have $500,000 to buy a home, you certainly have $50 to $100 in order to send your school.
But Brian, to that point, and Rob mentioned it, okay, the reason the houses are going up $350,000, $500,000 is because of the school system that's been established, but by what the town has established as far as services they provide. So I'll just add one thing, that you brought up that we voted 5-0-0 on the recommendations. We did. And if you look at the town, I think the town, for the most part, voted 5-0-0 on all their warrants. And I'll add to it that of the 22 warrants, I believe, between the two, the budget committee, which you're a part of, and I'm not saying you voted for it, but you are part of the budget committee, 22 warrant articles passed by the budget
I have
committee.
no control of that. I voted no on most
I'm
of
just
them.
saying, your budget
So-
committee, you're part of, your
Right.
budget committee,
And
you're part of,
that
passed and
but what point are you trying to make?
Recommended.
Because I have nothing to do with that.
my point is.
I'm on the
budget
committee,
is
yes, but
no
I don't,
different than
I
the
have
school
no mind
department.
control.
Because you have to recognize it takes money to operate.
It certainly
That's what
does.
comes down
I'm not by any means delusional to think that taxes are never going up. I understand that.
Yeah.
It is a fact of life. I get it. But the amount of money every year, the taxes are slated to go up, because don't tell me that a new school isn't on the horizon at some point.
We hope it is.
Right. I mean, how many millions of dollars is that gonna cost? What are you gonna throw it?
20-some-odd million anyway?
Exactly.
25
I mean,
million?
it's the cost that
But there's
that
a
are
need
going
for
up.
the
The school's the
schools.
biggest, when you look at the budget, when you look at your tax bill,
Yep.
it's not the town. Town's this little tiny little piece. It's the school. The school eats, what, 75% of the budget,
But Brian,
somewhere around there?
I'm
But
not
we-
making excuses, that's every single town in the state.
I understand that. I'm not saying I'm saying it's not right. The amount of money that and you guys say that you can't live with it and it's gonna affect the kids and all this stuff. You know, you can. You know what, when a family has to tighten their belt, school has to do the same, or should have to do. Apparently it doesn't, but it should. That's all I mean. We're not gonna
Brian,
agree.
if I-
There's nothing, there's no point
Just
to
as a
it.
thing that we could actually work together, there's a commission in front of the legislature right now, so they're examining school funding in the state of New Hampshire, because part of what happens here is it's all based on the local property tax, and in a community that does not have a commercial tax base like Litchfield,
Right.
that means households, right? So,
Absolutely.
So I would just encourage you, our board has talked with, in fact, our senator, Donna Susi, is the president of the Senate, and we have said, you gotta fix this. You gotta come up with something other than depending on local taxes as the main way. So, you know, that's an avenue where if the legislature can figure out some way to reapportion it, because that will result in some change. At the end of the day, schools are gonna continue to cost more unless we get a population decline, which we're not seeing at this point. We're seeing an influx of students, not a huge influx, but there are more students coming in, so it's gonna continue to rise, I'm afraid.
And I think, like, looking at this table, the 5 board members, we're all residents here. All of us would like to see our taxes go down or at least be stabilized, but unfortunately, it's part of the operation. None of us like to open that envelope twice a year. Trust me, Brian.
I guess we'll just agree to disagree, but thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else with public input? Hearing none. All right, we have minutes from February 5th, 2020 for approval.
Make a motion to approve the February 5th, 2020 minutes.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 5-0-0. And that'll bring us to Corey with the BA report.
I'll go through. I provided year-to-date general fund financial statements as of last Wednesday, so the manifest that you signed tonight isn't included in those expenditures at this point. Going forward, I'm gonna provide 2 different types of statements, one being an accrual basis and one being a cash basis, where on the accrual basis, I recognize the additional revenue that's due to us from the town and the state, and on the cash basis, gives you a picture of what we've actually spent and brought in to date, so.
Can I just ask, I'm sorry to interrupt,
Yes, sir.
just to clarify based on the delivery of last week. We have not received any extra money from the state as of right now, correct?
No.
Okay.
They
I
adjusted,
think
they
that was
adjusted,
confusing last week.
they adjusted the adequacy payments that were coming in to recognize the additional revenues that was approved as part of the biennium. So they've adjusted those payments, but that's not, the one-time money
It's in the future.
is in
Okay,
next fiscal year.
thank you.
So as of last week, I just did a comparison of what had been spent or encumbered out of the FY20 budget. That's at 96%. This time last year, we were at 97%, so we're right about there. My projection for unassigned fund balance at year end, my estimate, is still within the $400,000 range. Still give us some room at year end to encumber some items and take care of some things. Let's see. Still waiting on the food service, catching up on the posting revenues that I'll be able to provide in end of January, and I'll be able to do it end of February as well.
The one that jumped out at me on that was the expenditures have shown an increase over last year. Thought they were
For-
supposed to go down. That's food, right? For the food service?
Yep.
That's food, not, I thought we were done with equipment this year.
There's been some emergency repairs that had take place. We did do a replacement of a piece of equipment. Ovens had to be redone. So
Is she looking to break even, or is it still?
we're hoping I'll have a better picture of that within the next couple months. February 5th, Plodzik and Sanderson provided the 2019 financial statement, so you've been provided with the letter to governance, which I believe was a digital copy, and statements, and brought hard copies here tonight for those of you who wanted the hard copies. In terms of facilities, Mike and myself met with David Ely, as an architect with Windy Hill Associates, and Dick Henry, who's a energy consultant, and did a pretty lengthy walk of the three buildings. So we have provided information to Dick Henry to take a look through, see what he can see. We do have the RFQs from two companies, Siemens and what's the other one?
EEI.
So we have those two. He's gonna take another look, so I provided utility bills and is working on updating those utility bills to get us through this year current, so we'll have about 3 years worth of information to go through and see what he sees, and we'll bring additional information to the, capital planning committee before next meeting. Custodial staffing issues, we lost another one, up at the high school, so we're currently down to 2, and we did hire into the custodial supervisor position. So those are, we continue to try to keep the buildings as clean as possible with very, very little staffing, unfortunately, at this point.
Have we considered outsourcing at this point, in the meantime, until we can,
The thing is,
it's more, but I mean, I'm just saying, just to at least maintain.
Yeah.
the concern with outsourcing in terms of that, number one, I mean, you have a union involved. So that would be a hurdle in terms of that. Also, in some of the districts that I've looked at that do use outsourcing, you've got people coming in that have no stake in the game. You can't guarantee quality.
Going through desks and stuff.
Yeah, you want people that are vested in the district and,
Yep.
and work and that are your people. That's my opinion. And I think the cost would be higher. So.
Such thing allowed as like a referral bonus or something like that, where if somebody stays for a certain period of time,
I
they,
think those would all be
no,
subject to.
I know, I
collective
didn't think
bargaining.
so, but
Appreciated.
we're even
How
doing
long
it.
now have we been
I
down?
promise.
We had one at the high school just leave,
Oh.
within the past couple weeks, so we're down to 2.
Right,
Two-
how long has that
two
one been
full-time?
unfilled?
2 second shifts.
Oh, 2 seconds.
So we have
We're supposed to
one on
have three.
days
So
and
one
then 2
just
on
left.
second.
Right,
Yeah, we're not short anywhere else at this point.
so just at the high school, we're down 2?
We're down, well, we're going to, with next year's budget, I believe we were adding one to the high school. So we would have 4 if the budget passes,
Mm-hmm.
but
Or if
we
it's
were
not
at 3, and now
Okay.
we're down to 2. And
Okay, so only one
And
is
things are
down.
ramping up
Okay.
with concerts and events at the high school. It's the busiest.
What do the
School
grounds people do? Is that a conflict of the, do you know, like, I remember the grounds staff used to do school dudes during,
Yeah, we now have a really, I mean, I sat down with the two guys on grounds earlier this week, and they are really doing a lot of the maintenance, replacement of
Oh,
filters,
awesome.
doing repair work that's been deferred. They're really working really hard
Oh, good.
with Dave until we hit spring, and
then they're
they're going
outside, yeah,
Yeah. But they've really been good about it.
awesome.
Does anybody else have anything else for Corey? So the curriculum report you have there. We have,
Yeah, so you can read Mary's report.
Yep.
And maybe we'll double dip next time. I think it's the high school's turn, and we'll have Mary present also.
so that brings us to old business, acceptable use policy.
So we presented this at the last meeting with the highlighted changes. I know the board did not have it in advance, so I would consider this the first read. And want to see if there are questions that the board has for us relative to the policy.
I had some questions about, kind of the social media, non-official social media accounts, which are branded to represent the district. Would that include, I don't know, like co-curricular pages?
What page you on, Tara?
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't write that down. Hold on, let me just do a search
It looks,
for it.
it's under section B.
Under B.
Yep, there's a big yellow paragraph, and
Yep.
then the next paragraph down in the middle. Affiliated social media accounts, including non-official social media accounts which are branded to represent the district.
Non-official, to me, for I guess, what is that definition? Let me ask that
So
first.
let me just digest the whole
Yeah.
paragraph, because it's a fragment of a sentence, right?
Right.
So,
Because if it's like co-curriculars, I'm assuming those are like a parent or a coach who maybe works for the district or doesn't work for the district.
Booster Club page on
It just
Facebook.
gives
Create,
us-
like, they're creating,
Mike, I think the problem would be not so much this, but is there a policy governing what coaches have for pages?
Mhm.
I think this is fine. I think if you're gonna have this, though, there needs to be a policy through the athletic department.
like,
governing-
rules for
governing
managing those
right.
pages.
Right.
Because a lot of what's mentioned here is, you can't do certain links or
Pictures of students and
And
sensitive information.
for social media, the risk is more of the comments that all come through versus what's actually put out there. So the responsibility to monitor those.
so I think it's one of those, just reminders so who's signing off on the policy, right? So this is all of our employees
Right.
are signing off
okay.
on the policy,
Yeah.
that's who this applies to. And so if somebody has, I'm thinking about that Facebook page, the cheerleader page or something, that, they have to be responsible. They can't say, well, it's an independent organization.
Right.
So it just sort of
Still
loops
falls
that
under
in.
the same guidelines.
Then when we get the complaint, so are we monitoring these things all the time? Zero capacity to be out there
Right.
monitoring. Remember,
Right.
we have 3 tech people
Right.
who are busy all day long, so they are not paying attention to that stuff. But when a concern gets pointed out and a matter arises, they have to be able to respond to it. So
Right.
this gives us the teeth, if you would, to go to somebody and say, that is our organization, so you have to be responsible in the way you manage that.
And I think it's basically monitored by the parents, that they're all involved in it, so it's,
Absolutely, because
Right.
that's who we hear from when,
yeah,
Right.
when something is not right.
right. Do you have anything else, Tara?
And then is there a list somewhere of like the district social media accounts? Is it just Twitter and Facebook, or we don't have school level social media, right?
No.
No,
So-
PTO groups
It's
and
just
teams
3.
and things, and clubs
So
and
it's-
things
but
like
if-
that.
Three that are managed by the district, and then others that
Ms.
are.
Nagy, do you wanna? She still did one for the high school.
Does it Lynn on that?
She did one for the high school, just updating what was going on.
We
Does she still do
do
that?
the booster clubs, the music
Yeah.
club, the Friends of
I mean,
this
there's a lot
club,
of-
the Friends of Campbell
Yeah,
club.
right.
But they're like 5 Campbell
My official
pages.
one for the high
I think the only official one is the
Gets so,
SAU.
the SAU 27 official Twitter
Right.
feed. That's our official social media account.
yeah,
But the school board has a,
Facebook and a Twitter.
right. And that's it. So no
And that's,
school.
is that official?
I know, right. Is that not official or
It's
official?
casually
Right.
I would
official.
say so, it's the Litchfield School District,
Yeah,
Fall
right,
School
yeah.
Board, so.
And yeah.
It has the seal on it, so it must be.
Right.
Yeah,
Must be
true.
official.
Although it's maroon, not blue.
Yeah, it's the
It's an
pink
old
one.
seal, the pink one.
That's all I had.
Alright, I'll make a motion to approve the Litchfield Digital Technology Use Policy on first read.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
500. That brings us to the manifest. Any questions on the manifest?
Almost there.
So once again, it brings us to public input.
Hi, I'm Ryan Keller, LEA president, and I teach at the high school. I just wanted to say, the part of the delay with getting back to you was we just can't jump into a sidebar. I have to go to the executive board, there's 12 of us, we have to get all of them together, call a special meeting, make sure we can meet, and then we have to agree on the sidebar, bring it to the memberships. The membership, we have to vote, say, yeah, we do want to hold a sidebar, and then just move forward with getting the actual committee together. So that definitely took some time. So that was the delay in that, but we're definitely looking to collaborate and move forward.
So Ryan, just explain, so you'll
Yeah.
meet, hopefully you'll meet the week of the 9th
Yes,
as the executive committee. You have to then bring it to your membership for them for approval?
right. So,
If that's the case, how long of a process is that gonna take?
well, so they're aware of this, and they know that we want to move this forward quickly. So as soon as, this our sidebar committee and Superintendent Jetty, we can meet, we'll get that, move forward, hopefully come to agreement quickly, and then bring it to membership.
Do you need to have a meeting for that, or can they do like an electronic?
Right, and then we have to ratify whatever decision that we come to as a membership.
So do you think next year we should present the calendar to you a lot earlier so this can be done by February or March? I'm just curious.
We
What-
can't.
We can't
Yeah, we have
because
to
of
wait
that.
for Pinkerton and
We
Albert.
got the calendar from Pinkerton and Alvern. We produced our draft calendar within a week,
Okay,
presented it to the LEA.
Okay.
So I can't go any faster than getting their calendar.
okay.
And I
It
just also
might-
want to,
It might help, we can talk about ways to strengthen the process, right? So maybe
Yeah.
a standing calendar committee or, something,
Oh,
there
that
are
would be
things,
cool,
there are
yeah.
things that could be done
But again,
that would.
this is an anomaly. I mean, what's happening this year is not the norm.
Well, it's new contract language,
Yeah.
right? So it's brand new
Right,
language that we're
that's-
implementing.
Yeah,
that's
that's
what's
true.
hanging us up.
And to be honest, I haven't looked at next year, so I haven't said, okay, when's Labor Day in '21?
Yeah.
So I can't really say it's an anomaly yet.
And I just want to say also that a lot of positive comments about the last PD day.
Good.
Yeah, a lot of positive comments.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I heard it was great. No, I really did. I heard it was the best in years. That's what, unfortunately, I was with my boys. They go
Yeah.
to Hollis and Town School, so I couldn't be there.
I did
But-
hear from a lot of teachers that
Yeah,
it
very
was
positive.
very well done, and they felt really good and ready to move ahead.
Yep.
So that's
Yep.
always exciting to me.
I think it's good when you come out of a PD day and people are positive, because I know in the past we've had
Yeah,
some that.
right, right. It was very positive. All the comments were positive. Yeah.
Excellent.
Great. Thank you for sharing that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
With no one else in the public.
Elena's in the public.
Elena?
I forgot one thing. Can I say it real quick?
For what? Manifest?
No,
Oh.
I shadowed a student in the high school.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I
Not
thought-
last Friday,
oh.
but the Friday before. It was awesome. It was amazing.
Was it
He
Trevor
so
or
great.
Tyler?
It was
Was-
Trevor. Yes,
Who now
Trevor
works at-
Scopelades.
yeah.
What a great kid. Just really tried to engage me in his classes. Invited me to sit at his table.
You've never met Trevor then, right?
Well, he had been to a meeting, but not one-on-one.
Did you meet his brother?
Yes, yes.
You're used to
Actually,
two
they're as
twins,
twins. They're
yeah.
best friends, and mine are.
Are not?
I would not say they're to my best friend.
Awesome.
But I just have to say the one thing that really struck me is that every class I went to was 100% collaborative. There were no kids sitting lecture style. They were all sitting together in a group, like 4 to a pod or whatever. And I don't know, that just struck me. I was like, that's not like my high school when
That's
I
the
went
way
to
it's
school.
going.
And so I just was really excited about that. And
Did
I
you
think that
sense the small community like a family?
I did.
Yeah.
I mean, all the
It's like a
groups that
private
Trevor
school.
sat with, they were all different. He had his brother in a few of them for sure. But all different kids, very respectful to each other, even going table to table. I went to one of the labs and they were borrowing things from each other. And no, it was just a great experience. I was glad I did it. So.
Tari, just for the record, how did you arrange that?
Actually I've been wanting to do it for a couple of years and I just haven't had the opportunity to schedule it. And then when I went to the New Hampshire School Boards Association, I sat next to a school board member from the Bristol area, and she said she doesn't have kids in school, so she wanted to do a shadow. And so she said she arranged it through the school board rep, and I was like, oh, we have a school board rep, which we've not had prior to
right, it's
3
Tyler.
months ago. I don't know, the beginning of this
Is
year.
it
maybe?
Tyler or is it Trevor?
Which
I
one
don't
was
know.
it? Was
Trevor.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Trevor. Yeah.
And they're both
he's a
going to
rep,
St.
right?
Anselm too
Yes.
for running. Yeah.
And so that's when I reached out to Mr. Lonergan and I just said, can we arrange for this? I have two of these days available, and so he arranged it. So yeah, I really appreciated it.
So if anyone else wants to do it, that's how you do it.
Yeah, that's
Be
right.
afraid. Why are you laughing?
It'll be a change from kindergarten for sure.
Oh my god, I need a break from middle school.
All right.
And it was a snow day, so I got a short day. I was never so
Nice.
excited for
A 2-hour delay?
Yeah, 2-hour delay. Yeah.
Nice.
So everything was condensed.
That's awesome.
All right. Anything else before we go into non-public?
Oh, I had something. Sorry. When are we going to see the dress code again?
Oh,
Because
gosh.
I've been walking into Campbell High School and I'm kind of shocked by some of the things I'm seeing.
So the dress code, after we had the first read, I think it was,
Yeah.
and then we were gonna take it back to the committee, and it just got caught up. So we need to resurrect it.
Before the weather comes.
Well, so actually, to be honest, part of the reason we were doing it in the winter is we didn't have to worry about it, but it seems like we
Oh, you still have to worry about it.
Let me get the dress
I thought we
code
were
policy.
gonna,
I'm beyond
I thought we were
grace
going to
club
give that to
stretches
admin
and
to take
way
that
beyond
to
that.
staff and get teachers to weigh in, or was that just the separate teacher policy for the teacher handbook?
Let me pull our notes
Because I
on
think
it.
the point of contention was the hats.
Oh yeah, that was me. I was the hat person.
Back there again.
Yeah.
I think Brian was the hat person.
So I just thought we were going to try to get some more input.
Give them all
from
helmets.
CHS teachers and
I think I
middle
saw
school
only
teachers.
one hat at the high school, just FYI.
Was it a beanie hat, like the
It
soft
was a
hat?
baseball
with the-
hat, turned backwards. And my son has bought a cowboy hat and wants to wear it to school.
See, I
and
think-
is told he cannot wear it in the halls.
Because where do you draw the line there? That covers
Right.
a face when you're being. I don't want to see a cowboy in the high school. You can't see the front of its face. I don't know, a cowboy hat.
So we'll find out where it is.
Okay.
I will figure out where that is and get it resurrected. Yep. Thank you for that reminder.
All right. With that, we'll be going to non-public session, RSA-91A:311. The dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee or the disciplining of such employee, and investigation of any charges against him unless the employee affected, one, has a right to a meeting, and two, requests that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. The hiring of any person as a public employee, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the body itself, unless such person requests an open meeting. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.